On this edition of Native Report, we learn the art of making back bustles. We talk with actor and language activist Wes Studi.
Actually, I did Avatar at the same time as I did The Only Good Indian.
And we learn about a first-of-its-kind graduate degree program in tribal administration and governance. We also learn something new about Indian country and hear from our elders on this Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and the Blandin Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Stacy Thunder. Darren Moose is a sought-after artist who makes and repairs men's traditional dance bustles. But there is much more to this than mere craft making. There's history, culture, and even science that he applies into his work.
Powwows feature many ornately dressed dancers, and men's traditional dancers are easily identified by their single feather bustle, an expertly crafted item. One such craftsman is Darren Moose.
My bustle making started back in the days when, as a young boy, I've always seen something that looked intriguing to me, and I always was curious as to how to make those things. And I didn't really particularly have anybody to sit down with me and show me how to do these things. It was a lot of the things were all self-taught. There's a lot of people out there, in Indian country that do these types of things that experience the same story or experiences that I have, by just learning on their own. And sometimes that's the way to go. And you'll learn over time that sometimes things get, too heavy, or it just gets kind of tiring to try and maintain all the time.
Moose, also known by his Ojibwe name Ogema Benez, which means king eagle, does make the more colorful fancy dance bustles in all sizes of feather fans, but people seek him out for either making or repairing traditional bustles.
You have people out there that normally apply through the Department of Natural Resources, and they obtain their eagles that way, majority of the cases. Sometimes you get people that come along and have feathers that have been handed down to them from generation to generation. And if they happen to come towards my way and say, hey, Darren, can you redo this for us? And I just basically take them as they come, and that's not every week or every month. Just whoever feels like that they want something like that made, they'll come by. One of the main things that I usually normally ask for is tobacco. That's one of the things that when you ask for something from somebody, that that's a traditional, respectful way of doing things. Prior to me working with my own feathers or anybody else's feathers are concerned, I'll sit down and I will actually put some tobacco down, say a prayer, and I even have my own pipe, and I'll sit and I'll smoke the pipe, and I'll take some sage and smoke them down first prior to me actually sitting down, and I usually ask for guidance on how to apply what I know and how to make that feather look its best. And I always, everything I want to do, whether it's beadwork, leatherwork, featherwork, I always want it to make it look good, make it look natural, the way it was meant to be. The power of a feather, is bared down at the very tip of the stem, and that's one thing you don't want to cut, because once you cut that, then it's no longer a feather. a spiritual feather. It's just a thing.
It is here in the basement den where he works on the bustles.
Keep them in a certain order so that throughout the whole entire process of making this, that they don't, I don't get them mixed up when it comes time to string them up. The way I work with my feathers, as far as making them look bigger or longer or shorter or however, either myself or another individual who wants me to work with their feathers, I will use wooden dowels. The traditional way is that a long time ago people used to cut the feather in a loop and then just twist the feather back into itself, and you can string them up that way. That was the old way, and they say that you don't cut the ends of it because that's where a lot of the power, the sacredness of the feather. Without that, it's not a feather anymore. I take a wooden dowel, I size it up, and I'll take a straw, and I'll use that and slide the dowel inside. Same way with the feathers, and I use hot glue again. I don't like to use any other kind of glue, simply because if I want to take that thing apart again, I can just use a hot iron or something to heat it up, remelt it, and pull it apart again, and it will not hurt the feather. And then there is a secret to that when I work with those kind of feathers, with those kind of extensions. You have to puncture a hole in the straw, because if you don't puncture it, then the hot air inside it has no place to go, and it'll just all melt and disintegrate. So it's a little bit of a complicated way, but it just takes some practice to work with it. And I usually use the embroidery thread. And again, this is just a basic way of decorating up a feather. After the process that I just showed you on how to attach a dowel to a feather without having to cut the feather.
Moose does not do this for profit. He fixes and repairs bustles because he finds meaning in it.
It's who I am. I bear an eagle name. If I do something that's not right or something that's not natural to that feather, I'm only hurting myself too, and the gift that I see by working with these feathers for so long. It's something that's kind of very spiritual to me, and it came through me through a dream as a young boy, and I took that dream and figured out how I can apply it, as a project, and something that I know that I can be proud of, knowing that I have something that represents my spiritual self.
Did you know that Ojibwe is an indigenous language of the Algonquin linguistic family? The different dialects of Ojibwe comprise the fourth most widely spoken indigenous language in the U.S. and Canada, after Navajo, Inuit, and Cree. Ojibwe communities are found in Canada from Quebec through Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. In the U.S., they run from Michigan through Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, and even into Montana. According to current census data, the Ojibwe language is spoken by about 8,700 people in the U.S. and over 47,000 in Canada. Reports from 1703 note that Ojibwe functioned as the language of the fur trade from the Gulf of St. Lawrence on the East Coast to Ohio and as far north as Hudson Bay.
Actor Wes Studi is an honorary board member of the Indigenous Language Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and champions the issue of Native language revitalization. Recently, he gave the keynote address at the Minnesota Indigenous Language Symposium. Native America still has thousands who speak their language, and actor Wes Studi speaks Cherokee, learning English only when he began his formal education. English is not your first language.
I learned English my first 2 years of formal education, grades 1 and 2. I still have an aunt who was deeply involved in a school called Bacone, which kind of turns out missionary types. You know, I think it's a Methodist or a Baptist kind of junior college, and it just so happened that down the road from Bacone College was a little orphanage where a lot of orphans were, Indian orphans were, and she figured that for me to get a better education rather than out there back in Rocky Mountain in the Cherokee Nation there, east of Tahlequah, she talked the family into sending me to live at this orphanage so I could go to Muskogee schools. And the first year of going to school, I learned English. And I went home that summer and tried to use English, and the household would not have it. You know, they spoke Cherokee. That was it. And there was no way I was going to be throwing around any English in that house. My mother said, my grandmother, she took a stand and said, "Oh no, we don't talk like that here."
After being discharged from the military, Studi became involved in the activism spreading across Indian country in the early 70s.
We delved into identity, things that, we weren't always just taking over little towns and causing trouble and, all of that. Well, we'd have actual real conferences about talking about, what is it to be American Indian? What is it to be a Cherokee? What is it, we put, I think, a lot of study into that, and greater minds than mine came up with books and lectures that were of great result, over the years, and that's one of the times that I began to think that, geez, this is one thing that does actually set us apart from the overall population of the United States, is that, we are a people unto ourselves. We can be allied with and be a part of the United States, surely, but on the other hand, we still have this particular identity, and something that we, as American Indians, need to preserve and develop.
Studi's keynote address at the Minnesota Indigenous Language Symposium supports language revitalization efforts collectively, and he's active on a more personal level. Can you tell us about the Indigenous Language Institute?
I'm actually their spokesman. Whenever they have fundraisings and outreach to the public and all that, I'm their spokesman. So it works out for me. It's something that I believe in, and something that I believe is important to not only Cherokees but all American Indian tribes. In breaking down the words,
he worked for a bilingual education program, and that led him to the world of children's literature. You're an author of 2 children's books. Can you touch on that?
At that time, what we were doing was pretty piecemeal as compared to what's going on in the schools these days. But we were able to begin to put our publications into schools, their elementary schools, wherein there was a large percentage of Cherokee Indians in the schools. It was looked at as kind of radical at the time, but on the other hand was something that was, I think, really needed. So for the bilingual program, I wrote a column in the newsletter every week, and one of the things included in it was a story about a Cherokee character, a little boy that is called Billy Bean.
The gray-haired children were under Magwa's knife.
Acting, however, is Studi's passion. Fan favorites include The Last of the Mohicans.
Why do you hate the gray hair, Magwa?
When the gray hair is dead, Magwa will eat his heart. Before he dies, Magwa will put his children under the knife.
And more recently, Avatar.
Viswerate, ngal pelun malunga fitsing.
Wel bots bi mi yang, ta cwrdd a wawmia da ewa.
Potewe, sanzene keo nel terrano, keo sivu.
What's he saying?
Que te peo faheo akimu.
So was Avatar your last film?
Actually, I did Avatar at the same time as I did The Only Good Indian. The Only Good Indian happens in like 1900s or 1905, something like that, and then I would go back to Los Angeles to the future, like 30,000 or something like that. You know? But I wrapped up about 3 weeks ago. It's really a great little story. It's a dark comedy about father-son kind of a thing, and it stars myself, Paul Dano, Juliana Moore, and Robert De Niro. So it's an impressive cast.
Hard work is what got Studi to where he is today, and he knows that success is within the grasp of the younger generation for everything they do, including learning their language.
One of these days, as you grow older, and you will grow older, you are going to begin to wonder who you are. What is your real identity? What made you who you are today? And language has a lot to do with that. So I would encourage any and all of young people now to please, if you do have a good contact for your own language, then keep it up. Be a part of it. Be a part of your community. Be a part of your family, and be your real unique self. And it's great to know how to speak a language other than English in this world. Not only identity, it is something that is unique to you and your people, and I think you will enjoy it as you grow older.
There are 4 circles around that drum. The first circle around that is the drum itself. And the next circle is the men. The men bring life to that drum. The next, and how the men are around that drum is going to be how that feeling will go out to the people. And then the next circle is the women. And the women sing and have their own circle in our lives, in our societies, and they too will have their own circle. And when they sing, they will add to the song, add more life to the circle, and even hold that tune just a little bit longer, like they do in our societies. They hold our, they're our culture keepers. So they would do that with their music too. And the last circle around the drum is a circle of the people, So those first 4 circles would be around every time they use the drum and bring life to that.
The University of Minnesota Duluth has the first of its kind graduate program, the Masters of Tribal Administration and Governance. Native Report co-host Tad Johnson is program director, and in a rare instance, we interview one of our own.
The University of Minnesota Duluth academic calendar year is over, but Tad Johnson is preparing now for the next semester when he will welcome the first cohorts in the Masters of Tribal Administration and Governance program.
When I'm not doing Native Report, I am a professor and the head of the American Indian Studies Department at the University of Minnesota Duluth. And we were looking to start a graduate program regarding American Indian Studies, and we were looking at developing it, and so we eventually developed the Master of Tribal Administration and Governance. but that was after a great deal of consultation with Indian tribes. We went from Rapid City over to Michigan. We went to all the Minnesota reservations twice, did 2 or 3 actually statewide meetings, and consulted with the Indian tribes, consulted with tribal administrators, tribal leaders, tribal attorneys, and others, and wanted to find out exactly what type of program they wanted. And we learned that they wanted something more that was an applied degree as opposed to a theoretical degree, something that had to do more with reservation management and best practices for running a reservation.
This graduate program is the first of its kind in the nation and will cover topics such as tribal sovereignty, strategic and organizational management, and accounting practices, to name a few.
And then the third part of the first year is a course called Leadership and Ethics, and tribes were very interested in a course on both of those topics. We consolidated them, so that's another year-long course, Leadership and Ethics 1 and 2, and that'll be taught by one of the professors at UMD, a guy named Brian McGinnis, and we're very excited about that. The second year we have a course called Tribal Finance, Accounting, and Budgeting, which we have 1 and 2 of that, so that's another year-long course. And those are things that a tribal manager needs to know with regard to those aspects of running the reservation. So there's a lot of federal rules and understanding the federal budgeting system. And then there's Advanced Tribal Management 1 and 2, which is personnel or HR management, and then project management. And last but not least, and as an attorney, it was important for me to somehow work in federal Indian law, so we have Federal Indian Law 1 and 2, and we'll be looking at all the important statutes and case law with regard to Indian affairs. And that's pretty much it.
What kind of student are you looking for, or what type of student would be looking to attend the program?
The main folks who came to the meetings were people that were working on reservations, and so there were and we had a lot of working moms on the reservation coming to the meetings, and they were very interested in doing a program like this. And but they were the ones that pushed us into the weekend format and then the online form of program delivery. And the farther we got away from Duluth, the more tribes wanted this to be an online and weekend program. So it's going to be that's what it's going to be. It's going to be on the weekends, so for working adults mainly, and every 3 weeks they come to Duluth, but we may change that over time to strictly online. But certainly we would welcome anybody interested in a master's degree, which aims at working on the reservation and working in administration on a reservation.
Johnson's 25 years of experience as a tribal attorney, working for Congress, and later with the Clinton administration, convinced him that tribes would support the program.
I recognized that there were complex things, and every year things got a little more complex in reservations. Laws that needed to be complied with by the accounting department. With the advent of Indian gaming, there were new requirements on reservations. The Indian Self-Determination Act had auditing requirements, and the Self-Governance Act changed some things on the reservations. And primarily what's happening is the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Service are moving more off the reservations. The tribes are taking over more programs, and tribes need administrators to take care of these and handle these very difficult and complex issues of running the reservation. Early on, when I was working for the Mille Lacs Band, we were involved in the Self-Governance Demonstration Project, which was part of the Indian Self-Determination Act. It was an amendment to it. And then I was working for the Congress in 1994 when that became a permanent law. And what it does is it allows tribes to do the things that the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Service used to do on the reservation, but allows the tribes to prioritize the money and prioritize the types of programs. So if they want to redesign the programs under the Self-Governance Act, they can do that. One tribal leader said, if I'm going to send somebody to this program, I want them to understand, and I hand them a project, I want them to understand the mission and the budget and the personnel they're going to need to finish the project well. Originally we had a much more theoretical program in mind. We thought it would be a little more literature, a little more history, a little more But they wanted the fundamentals, and they wanted us to hit the mountaintops of things that a tribal administrator and maybe a future tribal leader might need to know. I believe that this program was designed by Indian tribes, and so that's why I think it's unique nationwide, and I don't think there's anything else like it.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org. I'd like to thank Christina Woods for filling in for me while I was having a baby. I'd like to introduce Sequoia Che Thunder Romero. Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Stacy Thunder. See you next time on Native Report.
Stacy Thunder is a member of and legal counsel for the Red Lake Nation, and Tad Johnson is a member of the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa and is chair for the American Indian Studies Department on the campus of the University of Minnesota Duluth. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and the Blandin Foundation.